So everybody has seen some kind of self-improvement content. It's everywhere. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you name it. But usually it's contained to an advertisement from, say, Sephora, or some company trying to sell you a beauty serum. You probably wouldn't think of something like bone smashing being recommended. It feels harmless, but what happens when it crosses that line and turns into obsession? What happens when self-improvement becomes your entire identity? Let me start off by saying beauty is not new. The instinct to look your best possible self dates back thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. But one modern example can be dated back just to a couple centuries ago. The French term il faut souffrir pour être.
Il faut souffrir pour être belle.
This roughly translates to one must suffer to be beautiful, aka beauty is pain. Extreme standards aren't new, however. Take slenderizing salons from the 1940s.
It seems that after you've helped to win the war, you'll still have another battle on your hands, and legs and things. The Battle of the Bulges. And here are some of the latest mechanized units on maneuvers, or rather, womaneuvers.
These might seem insane, but back then this was completely normalized. Standards now are a little bit different though. But the way that these standards spread has completely changed. Back then, you were only exposed to stuff through magazines, newspapers, and maybe the occasional TV ad. This messaging was slow and deliberate and calculated because it cost a lot of money to produce. Nowadays, with the rise of social media, we have all these algorithms pushing so much personal content. It's very easy to go down the rabbit hole. One of those being beauty. Two main apps push this, TikTok and Instagram. And it doesn't help that most people already have scrolling addictions. It means nonstop exposure. And this constant exposure creates something new. Communities. Enter looks maxing. Simply put, looks maxing is the way to maximize your appearance. Looks maxing. It's pretty simple. But below the surface, it's a structured community with its own beliefs, its own lingo, and its own hierarchy. And just like any system, it has its entirely own language.
Did you know that the ASU frat leader brutally frame-mogged Clavicular?
Rhett, did you hear the news, bro?
What?
Dude, Clav got frame-mogged by an ASU student.
There's no way Clav got frame-mogged. Let me see.
Gonna be okay, bro. Okay.
We are reaching peak levels of brain rot here.
You may be familiar with quote-unquote Gen Z terms like alpha, beta, mogging, etc. Now, if you're not in today's generation, you might be pretty confused on what all these mean. Well, that's the looks maxing community's own language. These terms can create a competitive, almost game-like environment. And once you turn everybody into numbers, stuff starts getting a little weird. Everybody's seen it. Somebody goes, oh, he's a 7. Oh, she's a 9. It's relatively harmless, besides the fact that you're ranking people solely based on attractiveness, but that's not the point here. This method of quantifying people has been widespread and socially accepted because it doesn't tear you down as much. But when you start adding hierarchical value to it, you start diluting people down to just numbers. And that's not good at all. It simplifies people down to a simple value, which can be very dehumanizing without even knowing it. On top of that, it also encourages constant competition. And this competition is what keeps people hooked. On top of all of this, the algorithm doesn't help by any means. The algorithm is made to push content that gets a reaction out of you. Extreme content performs better, more shocking content gets more views gets more exposure, and so the advice that these looks maxers are giving gets, in tandem, more extreme over time. Let's give some real examples of these now. When looks maxing first started, it started with skincare. Most guys generally don't do skincare. So, it seems like a valid reason to start. However, this has quickly turned from harmless serums into something known as bone smashing. What originally started as go outside and take a run or go to the gym has turned into microdosing meth. And while there's slight scientific backing for all of these methods, they're not anywhere near conclusive enough to actually try for yourself. But why do people follow them then? Well, if you want to talk about manipulative, let's talk about the target audience of some of these videos. Generally speaking, the target audience for looks maxing videos are teenagers between the ages of 14 and 19. If you could imagine yourself back when you were 15-ish, you didn't know what you were thinking about. You were very vulnerable. You're already dealing with all these identity and self-image issues that when somebody tells you you'll look 10 times more attractive if you start smashing the bones in your face, you're a little more apt to do it. This type of content exploits insecurities instead of fixing them. And sometimes it's not just influencers, it's also monetized. All of a sudden, the exploiting of insecurities becomes lucrative. Influencers start selling courses, programs, and paid guides for how to look better. They promise instant transformation for the small price of thousands of dollars. But why would people keep buying if the results aren't there? There's a bit of irony and a cycle to it. While its goal is to attract people, in reality, the obsession over making yourself look as good as possible makes daily social interaction worse. When you focus so hard on your outward appearance, you neglect your personality, confidence, emotional skills, and shaping who you want to be as a person. Which brings up a bigger question. What about this actually attracts people? Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, of course it attracts people. Who wouldn't want to look good, right? But they seem to all gloss over the fact that real attraction comes from inside. Pretty much everybody would agree that most women find more attraction in the personality of a man rather than simply his outward appearance. You hear all the time on dating apps, somebody that can make me laugh, somebody that's funny, somebody that's confident. You don't usually hear, I want a supermodel, because it doesn't make sense. Not everybody is a supermodel. The thing that most of these teenagers forget is that looks aren't everything. And looks maxing overcorrects in one direction. And this imbalance creates serious consequences. Most teenagers go through this. You probably did too. Imagine waking up in the mirror every day, looking at yourself, and being dissatisfied. I don't think that this is a very uncommon experience, but when you get dragged down this rabbit hole of constant comparison, it can have some serious mental effects like anxiety, insecurity, and never really feeling good enough. And that's all because with all these videos, you keep moving the goalpost further and further. Every new method is a new thing to improve. Every new facial exercise is a new muscle group you have to tone. It gets really ridiculous really quickly. While the standard isn't so impossibly high, most men can actually achieve the standards that looks maxing promotes. The real reason why it's so harmful is because the standard keeps changing. This quote-unquote perfect look is always evolving with the newest trends, the newest ideas, the newest philosophies on what makes a man attractive. It makes it to where you can improve, but still feel so left behind. This, in a way, turns self-improvement into your own trap. Now, let's stop focusing on the individuals caught in the system. And it really is that, a system. It's a system that enforces rigid masculinity. And on top of that, encouraging ranking human value. And surprise, surprise, that can very negatively impact how people see themselves and the world around them. All in all, self-improvement isn't the problem here. Everybody wants to look better. It's natural. I'm not denying that. But it's this obsession and dehumanization that higher-ups in the looks-maxing community push that's really the harmful thing here. So, where do we draw the line with all this? Listen, I'm all for improving. But there comes a point where you have to look at yourself and you have to have some level of content with where you're at. Humans are biological creatures. Our brain doesn't work in binary. It doesn't work in ones and zeros. So human value isn't something that you can easily quantitate. You shouldn't optimize yourself like a stat of a video game character. And in conclusion, you can't put a number on people. Alrighty, thank you so much for listening to this. This took me a